This is the second of our dialogue sessions. These are public sessions where we introduce our mentors for the program and their practices to everybody. This is also an info session for you to ask away any questions. This is quite a complex program. It has many parts to it, and it might be really hard to understand it. And so here we are to help clarify any questions you might have. You can go to the next slide. So just a quick sense of what this the next 18 to 90 minutes is going to be about. My name is Kamya Ramachandran. I'm the founder and director of BeFantastic. And I will be telling you a little bit more about this fellowship that we have planned for the coming year. We then present our mentors, Avinash Kumar, Freo Majer, TCS Research Group, and Manisha Vinod, who will host us in Bangalore. And we follow this with a short panel discussion, followed by questions and answers from all of you. So while we go through this, if any question pops in your mind, please feel free to put it down in the chat so that it doesn't escape you. And Shivani and Jasmine from the BeFantastic team, who are also here today, will hold on to those questions and try to get it answered. Yeah. So a little bit more about BeFantastic. We are a platform that originated in 2017 with a festival called Bengaluru Fantastic. That's kind of where we get our name from. We really sit at this intersection of art, technology, and telling compelling stories that plague the world around us in this contemporary moment. And call us naive, call us ideological, but we bring artists, creative technologists, researchers, and everybody to just kind of come together and collaboratively co-create. And really with this intention that when we do this together, we're able to imagine a positive future. And therefore, we potentially will be able to get there at some point. We also had a festival, sorry, just to complete what the visuals on the previous slide was. We had a festival in 2023, which delved into AI and art. And that was a culmination of 3 preceding fellowships from 21 to 23, where artists again explored the idea of AI and presented it to 3 different locations in Bangalore to kind of lay public, to understand both AI and climate change, highly complex conversations of our time. We can move to the next slide. So a little bit more about kaleidoscopic fields. We call it kaleidoscopic fields because this is really a coming together of a very diverse cohort of disciplines, of geographies, of thought. And the idea here is how do we bring this all together like a kaleidoscope does, disparate objects or seemingly disparate parcels. And our fellowship does want to focus on the idea of food systems and how that might bring this really abstract idea of climate change a bit closer to our lived experience. So within the fellowship, we will get to interact with multidisciplinary participants, both fellows as well as experts. And here there is a lot of knowledge exchange and peer learning because in an innovative space like tech art, it's the DIY peer learning communities that are really forging the path ahead. And with all of this coming together and exchanging of ideas and making collaboratively, we are hoping that we come up with really interesting works that we can showcase and amplify the messages that we want to give through these works. Our program has 5 different components. We have the convene, which is everything online. So it's a hybrid program. We start online. We interact and ice break online. We get to know each other online. We get to know contexts online. And then we will have a bunch of dialogue sessions, this one being one where we have experts come in from various parts of the world as well as India and discuss pertinent issues that are relevant to our fellowship. Then we have Immerse, which is our field residency, in this case in Goa, Bangalore, and Ladakh, where over now a period of 6 weeks, different locations will meet each other and really come together physically, face to face, and test and try and really like create works, not in abstract virtual space, but in a certain kind of physical togetherness. We have the Forge, where our experts and mentors convene to both kind of guide the strategy of the program, deliberate as jurors, and exchange their own practices as well. And finally, both within the residency space as well as beyond, once the works are developed, a series of different types of showcases, work in progress, as well as kind of final showcases. And how this all gets put together is in the three various locations, Ladakh, Bangalore, and Goa. Of course, this means that it's different geographies, different ecosystems, and different food cultures and stories that we can plug into. A little bit more about the program from a timeline perspective. We're currently running the open call, which closes on the 2nd of March. So we have just over 10 days for everybody to write it up and send it in. We're really eager to receive your responses and read through them. By the beginning of April, you should have a yes or a no, and most likely we want to include as many people within the online component of it as possible. The online component is for 7 weeks, starting 14th of April till the end of May. And it starts with a kind of icebreaker week, followed by 2 weeks each for each context. We'll get into those details in the next slide. All of June, we hope that you will be making a proposal together to send in, essentially to say that when I come to the residency in Bangalore, Goa, or Ladakh, this is what I hope to explore. These are the research areas that I'd like to bring in with me or go further within in the research. These are the collaborative creators who will work with us. This is the group, so that kind of a sense of what one would use the residency space for. Mid-August to the end of September in various locations, we'll have probably 2 weeks of face-to-face conversations and an ability to plug into the local context and the climate context within these spaces. We continue our online reviews October, November, and by June, when we get proposals, we will be able to lock in showcases in Goa, in Ladakh, in Bangalore, December, Jan, maybe even Feb of next year. So that's the overall timeline. And just to give you a sense of how the online masterclass week will work, this is the convene weeks. Week 1, starting 14th April, will be icebreakers. Week 2 and week 3 are Bangalore weeks. And as you can see, we have the climate mentors, the art tech mentors, each one offering a set of 3 masterclasses each. For those of you who would be interested in the Bangalore week or in the Bangalore residency, the Bangalore week is imperative. You must be attending it. Similarly, Goa and Ladakh as well. You'll have the climate mentors, the art tech mentors, and you'll have a bunch of open space conversation opportunities to get together and just kind of be a bit more casual and less formal with the engagement. For those who, the previous slide is really to say that if you're applying to Bangalore, you should be attending all the sessions in Bangalore. If you're applying to Goa, you should be attending all the sessions in Goa. If you're applying to Ladakh, you should be attending all the sessions in Ladakh. But really, this is the array of sessions open for everybody. It would be from 6:30 every evening at the same time, IST, and would go on for 2 hours. So you have an array of amazing mentors to learn from, choose from, exchange with, network with. So I would really encourage all the fellows who are thinking of applying to please look at this opportunity and seize it. We can go to the next slide. Just quickly, we have for the first time climate researchers who are grounding our program. And so we have Saloni Bhatia from ATRI, and she has worked in Ladakh and will really set context for what the climate change conversation in Ladakh is. We have Axel Brockman and Shruti Unikrishnan from B Lab Bangalore. They were both at the NCBS, studying pollinators, bees in particular, and they will kind of hold the Bangalore conversation. We are in conversation with a couple of people in Goa to look at mangroves and fisheries and understand kind of the marine ecosystem in Goa. They will be confirmed very shortly. And last week, we had the first dialogue. We had 3 really interesting mentors, as well as Abir Gupta from Ladakh, who showed us the space in Ladakh. Ajeb Ghar, Matthias Einhoff, and Jonathan O'Hare. Ajeb Ghar are a duo from India, Computational Mama and Nanditi Khilnani. Matthias Einhoff is from Berlin, and Jonathan O'Hare is from Switzerland, in Germany and Switzerland, Geneva and Switzerland. Abir, of course, lives in Bangalore, but holds the Ladakh space on behalf of Achi Association. So we have a YouTube link, and Jasmine or Shivani, if you could please put the link of the YouTube video on the chat here. For those of you who missed last week, please check the YouTube link. You'll get to hear more from those mentors. This week, we're really excited to have with us Freo. Avinash, unfortunately, our mentor from Goa, is currently in the Adelaide Fringe and probably playing at the Adelaide Fringe. And we also have our TCS Research crew with Shailesh Deshpande, Vikram Jamwal, and Subhro Jyoti Chaudhuri. We also have with us Manisha Vinod from the Bangalore Creative Circus, who will be our host, space host in Bangalore. And we're super happy to hear from them very shortly. So since Avinash is absent, we do have a little bit on his behalf that we will drop links for in the chat here. But actually, we can go ahead and show them the space, the unbox space in Goa, and then maybe drop those videos in the link for folks to view. Only because the viewing experience on Zoom is a little bit choppy. So just to give you a sense of who Avinash is, we've known Avinash for a long while now, being in the art and tech space in India. Avinash is a design strategist, researcher, and artist, and one of the co-founders of Quicksand, with a natural inclination to build entrepreneurial projects in the arts and design space. Avinash has been tinkering with design processes and collectives for over 15 years now. He presently anchors Quicksand's Games Lab and is the co-founder of the acclaimed electronic arts collective Blot. Avinash is really somebody that we call serial co-founders. So under Quicksand, he co-founded Unbox Cultural Future Society, who we are partnering with, and Unbox Labs in Goa, the iMyth Media Arts Festival, Future Fiction, and most recently, Antariksha Sanchar, where their marquee project elsewhere in India, which is what they're traveling with, and they've really traveled far and wide with, is playing at the Adelaide Fringe. Actually, just to do this justice, this is the space in Goa. They have an old Portuguese building in Goa, and they're really happy to lend that as the host space within Goa. You can just move ahead with these slides, Shivani. So yeah, that's a little bit to give you a sense in his absence of how the space there behaves. There's workshopping space, gathering and showcasing space as well. And maybe just a little snippet of the kind of work that they do with elsewhere, Shivani. Not too long, maybe a couple of minutes before we bring on the next speaker.
Hi, this is Murtovich. I'm from Hyderabad, India. I'm part of the Elsewhere in India project with Avinash. I'm the music director for the project.
Hi, I'm Avinash. I'm a visual jockey and designer. Elsewhere in India is essentially an audiovisual electronica performance. It came from the pandemic, sitting together and thinking about the future of the earth and future of India. And it's basically a story that's set in the year 2079. And it follows the central protagonist, who's a cyborg by the name Meenakshi. And it also features digital avatars of both Murthy and me. We're the sidekicks for this cyborg. And the three of us in this story in the future are essentially trying to piece together fragments of Indian heritage that are left behind and trying to relive and recreate some of the magic of that heritage in the future.
I think the audiences can see a humble effort.
So we'll drop this link. Please feel free to share, view a little bit more of their current work. But I think, as you can see, Avinash is really keen on visual culture, Indo-Futurism. They're really kind of trailblazing in those respects, using game engines, animation design, and really telling culturally rooted stories, among other things. So with that, I would like to bring in Freo. Freo is a really interesting person, founder and director of Forecast, which is just like BeFantastic, both a festival as well as a platform and a fellowship in Berlin. And they do some really amazing work in quite similar to what we are doing here in India, bringing people together through mentorship, creating works and showcasing works. And so it's been really exciting to have Freo join us. Freo will be the mentor in Ladakh. And I think what we hope to get from Freo is a lot of conceptual thinking, grounding projects in research and reality, and how to present works, because there is a great value in critical commentary by works done of our current times. And I think Freo grounds that value really well. So Freo, welcome, and I will give you the spotlight.
So I'll try sharing my screen. Can you see something already?
Yes.
And now you should see it even bigger.
Yes.
Perfect. So I would like not to talk too much about myself, but rather about what we do with Forecast. I have this artistic background that you mentioned already, Kamya. I used to be a director for opera and theater, and now I kind of try to give to creatives what I didn't get enough maybe as a young person. And it's all about people that are audacious, maybe not self-confident enough, but want to achieve something, have a certain ambition, and have interesting ideas. And there may be this feeling of being detached or isolated or not having things in your hands as a young creative, or not knowing how to do things. And so I really like to see things from the negative side, like what is lacking, what people might need in the future, or how to fill certain voids, or for me, it's all about doubts and things that are not yet there. We always start with an open call because we, and also I personally, think that we do not know anything and we do not know people. And so we always ask with this open call, who would like to do something, who has certain visions, ambitions, plans, and doesn't know how to do it, or would need more facilitation, a framework for funding, and also maybe an individual mentorship. Then we have all kinds of supporters like these mentors, for example, but sometimes it's not so much about this individual mentorship that we do annually, but sometimes it's more about experimenting with formats, with material, with all kinds of physical, performative, and always kind of practical research. So in our case, we do not like to talk too much, or not only, but it's always about producing, putting stuff into spaces and testing. So I also need the doubt for questioning, for testing stuff and understanding what may have gone wrong, or what may not have been enough. So it can be very personal about the body and performance and how to experience oneself. It can also be about a group experience and playing with material. And the term experience is always very important for my personal work and for forecast. So we do not like representative things so much like words and discourse and theory, but rather about trying out things together in a space with actual human beings. So this is what we do annually with the mentorships, but we also have come up with some science art collaborations, for example, Driving the Human, which was all about the climate crisis and strategies for sustainable methods, tools, strategies. And I would like to introduce one of those projects to you. It's by a Peruvian artist based in Greece. And this project was about indigenous chiefs in the Amazon and the jungle of the Amazon region in Peru. And these chiefs usually have to defend their habitat, their communities against all kinds of mining companies and soy growing companies. And really regularly, these people are murdered. Everybody knows that, and everybody knows who murdered them, but nobody will sue anybody. There will be no trial, no policeman will try to find out what happened. And so this artist from Peru wanted to convey these stories and also these personalities and their deaths and why they died and how they died and what they tried to fight for to a European audience. And so the question, of course, was how can we tell those stories without just using them for our own purposes as Europeans, right? Just, sugarcoating things or virtue signaling or whatever might be perspectives that may be seen as colonial or not respectful. And so it was all about how to bring things into a space. The space for this festival is a huge hall in a former crematory in Berlin. And so the artist wanted to work with mourning, like elements of mourning, memories and pieces of these cultures, these communities that actually had a certain importance for these chiefs that were killed. And then we first came up with putting those elements like little plants and seeds and symbols, like little artifacts into those little niches that formerly had the function to hold is it an urn in English? Like where the ashes are? Yeah. And then we also had a huge dome above this space. And as the artist had always worked with all kinds of cameras, like 360 degrees cameras, I suggested to really screen those videos on the dome. And so the result was that you as a visitor would have been under those huge projections, and those indigenous children like playing and working and wandering through those Amazon landscapes would look down on you. So you would be super small under those huge figures in their everyday life, which was very touching, and also told those stories in a very, dominant, strong, and confident way. This is the last of those images showing one of those boys. So basically, what I can offer as a mentor, I think, is, let's say, thinking about formats, narration, narratives, storytelling, how to convey things like thoughts and concepts into something physical. I'm not a curator so much. I'm rather really a director. So it always becomes very practical. It's about the body and time and timing, like how to build up a certain tension, how to engage an audience. It's all about how people move through spaces, how an audience may interact or be confronted with something, with an object or an activity. And I really like to provoke a lot. I really like to question things from unusual perspectives, maybe. It may sound a bit harsh sometimes. I'm German after all, but it's always meant to be hopefully fruitful and encouraging and helpful. Yeah, that's what I can offer. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Freo, and also thank you for sharing your meandering between disciplines. I think that's going to be one of the main themes among our panelists and really among our fellows as well, meandering of disciplines. And so starting off as a director and ending up where you are as directing a platform and showing us these works, I think it's been interesting where your directorial hat has definitely come into how what Manifest has. So thanks so much for sharing.
Thanks.
And folks, please note your questions down for Freo, either in your own notebooks or in the chat. I will bring in the TCS Research folks, Vikram Jamwal, Subhro, and Shailesh.
Hi, everyone.
So just to quickly say,
Hello.
of course, they will talk to you a lot more about each of them. Together, they form TCS Research, and we have both senior and principal researchers in the group, and so they come with a really high level of experience in 3 different domains, more of which they will tell you in depth. But I think what is continuing the thread of meandering disciplines, what is interesting among these 3 researchers within TCS is that they all have a creative practice as well. Shailesh has a visual art practice, Subhro has a music practice, and Vikram has a computational creativity practice. So just to kind of craft who these technologists are, who have deep experience in technology, but have put one foot out of their little bubble into the next. So I'll leave it to all 3 of you now. Thank you so much for joining us. You're on mute, Vikram.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm Vikram Jamwal, and I'll just kind of introduce you to why we are here. We as researchers are here, and we somewhat as artists are here. I'll give you a brief idea about why we are getting into this, why we got into technology and the art. Okay. So together with me will be Subhro and Shailesh. We also have Shishir, who is spearheading the whole initiative. Let's talk about art a bit. When we look at the art has a cultural aspect. Art is something that creates a collective consciousness in some sense. It connects. It also can bring a social change. And perhaps that could be the objectives of one of the projects that you take up. Who knows? Art also has a kind of a wellness impact. Art can lead to contemplation. And when you are self-expressing, it has been found that it is therapeutic as well. But why are Tatas and why are we kind of interested in it? If you look at it, the Tata Group has the most extensive art collection in the corporate India. Perhaps you're not aware of this. And the Tata Hospitality Company has the most extensive collection of the Indian art. The Taj Art Gallery was opened in 2016 in Taj Mahal, Mumbai. So that is the kind of space that we bring in. Just give me a second. So the Tata Trust actively promotes preserving art culture through the art. And we have now we have a research initiative in arts and technology. And we also have a business unit coming up, which kind of will deal with the application of the art and the business related to the art. So what are our goals in that sense? So these are the few of our goals. One is to reduce the complexity in the creation of the art. We are interested in taking the huge artwork collections, cataloging them, and making it accessible to the people in the new digital ways. And we are also interested in exploring and coming and inventing new mediums of expression, which this technology can enable. So something that future opens for us. We all will kind of present briefly about the kind of workshops that we'll hold. So workshop that I'll be kind of dealing with will be about computational creativity and we. I, as a background, I am a PhD in computer science from the IIT Bombay. That's my background as a computer scientist, but I also have delved in theater, looking at the aspect of writing screenplays, directing plays, acting in the plays, also doing the stage setups, and plus also involved in lyrics writing, poetry, and other forms, different kind of performing arts. And in my kind of present view, I lead the computational creativity research at TCS R&D. So this workshop will kind of have a broad look at what is our relationship with the technology and where we might be heading. So we'll say with the all kind of technology coming up and computer likely to become our kind of a close partner in our kind of art efforts, how do we react and readjust to these mediums? We'll bring in examples from performing arts, from visual arts, from any different kind of arts to see it, what kind of a co-creative relationship that we have with these mediums. We shall also look at what is the state of art, what we have already achieved, and what we might be heading to. And here, the people who we hope that who will be kind of participating in these fellowship will also be instrumental in pushing the state of the art in some way. And that's where we are deeply interested in the collaboration. We aim to excite the participating associates to come up with their own ideas and projects in their own domains, in their own impact in the social life, or whatever the way they want to express. And we'll kind of sit with you and see how we can technologically link it together or enable it. Or maybe there's a lot we will learn from you. Okay, just to give one or two examples of the kind of a work, and that's a very recent things that, in fact, as soon as this week. So now we look at the food is also one of the themes of this whole fellowships. So this is the Apple's artwork by Vincent van Gogh. So that's what he has done. So he recently produced, and this was kind of done in collaboration with fellow researcher Abhishek and Pawan, a kind of our version of this painting. Can you guess what would it be? Actually, if you look at each part of the painting, the way we have produced is actually made up of the food images drawn from the Renaissance period, from the abstract art, from the impressionist art to the modern art. So each piece, each kind of a shade that you see is actually constituted of these food items. Okay. For example, one of the things that we were interested in is that we always, for the great painters, we always see the paintings as they are static. What if we were in a period that we sat alongside that painter and wanted to see that painting coming alive? How would he have drawn it? So one of our research efforts is kind of directed in that direction. You take an artwork and try to kind of a reverse guess it, where it gets. So this process is an ongoing research and we'll keep on kind of improving our methods, but I'll give you a flavor of where you can kind of draw it, where the kind of computer will draw it, and also kind of a sketch attempt some of the famous artworks. So again, this is a portrait by Vincent van Gogh. first there's a sketch that is happening. All of these are kind of very fast forwarded, and then there's a painting that's done on top of it. And all of this is done by the kind of a computer algorithms. And just a couple of a few more examples. Okay, so now I'll kind of, with this, move on to Subhro, who's a fellow researcher. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vikram. So I'm Subhro Jyoti, and I work as a scientist with TCS Research. And I also pursue the passion of a singer and songwriter and a musician, apart from the time that I spend in TCS. In TCS, basically, I delved into various areas of research, looking at how can you build tools which can enable software engineers to become more efficient, and then moved on to a very different domain of experimental physics, building control systems for large telescopes, radio telescopes, and nuclear fusion reactors. And basically applying some of the research further to industrial, systems like power plants and so on. And then realize that with the world getting more and more connected with the Internet of Things, it is possible to look at human beings also as part of the system, right? Which also needs nurturing and nourishing and so on. And music indeed happens to be a great potent source to enable such nourishing and nurturing. And since I have been a musician for quite some time, right from my college days, I thought of clubbing my day job and my musician's hat into a single stream of activity. And as a musician, I write songs. Many of my songs are available on Spotify. Luckily, one of my songs was nominated for, an award at the India level last year, Clef Music Awards, in the Best Lyrics category for rock music. And we were also aired by the ABC radio networks in one of their independent radio shows, called ABC Fame Games. So that's kind of my background as a musician. And so, Vikram, if you could please go to the next slide. So I am leaving much of the details for the workshop, but just to give you a sense of what I intend to cover in that workshop is there is this term called musicking, which has really emerged and which kind of blurs the distinction between a musician and non-musician. Traditionally, we look at musicians with awe and say that, wow, they are at a very different level of expertise and we are just, but typically it's not the case, right? Anybody who is engaged in with music in any form is actually contributing to this overall effect of music, and that is neatly coined as musicking by, uh, someone from New Zealand, and it is the concept itself is gaining a lot of momentum uh, with respect to seeing how it can enhance the quality of experience. So not only the experience of the music listeners, but also the quality of experience of the people making music, performing music on stage, and so on, and how technology can it much more than the way it is currently doing, right? So in the workshop, I'm thinking of, and basically you are very welcome to suggest if you think anything needs to be added, modified in what I've listed here. Basically, I'd like to give you first an introduction of the technology that is used in the making of music. What are the different phases of making music and what technologies people typically use. And then I want to touch upon how AI can still improve and maybe eventually disrupt. Basically, music making has boiled down to writing a few text as prompts on AI engines and getting music out of it. But obviously, I'm not going to go in there and tell you about how do you write prompts, but I want to go systematically and tell you how typically software and technology is used to make music, and then see how you can additionally make use of the capabilities of artificial intelligence to further enhance your creativity, your creative skills in enhancing the overall music production, right? And then I would like to move on to territories where AI can still play a role in enhancing the quality of experience for both the live music performers as well as the listeners. So, traditionally, if you're using a music production software, you have to do a lot of work manually, right? Some of those manual tasks can be automated significantly with good outcomes, I would say, but there is still a long way to go for AI to really help in a much more grassroots level, I would say. But nonetheless, I've done some work in this space, and I'd like to show you what I've done and how it has helped me as a musician to make performances. And I will also tell you about how AI can also help music listeners to become more aware of the music that they're listening to, so that it can help them achieving a bit of wellness goals as well while they're being music listeners. So it can serve two purposes at the same time. It can give you a good, recommend something good to you to listen to, and as well play the side role of helping you to attain some degree of well-being, mental wellness. So that's overall what I intend to cover. And if you please go to the next slide, I'll show you one sample of.
As can be seen from the figure below, the algorithm first splits the original
I'm so
music track
sorry.
into a
Just,
set of arrangement
I think,
by using the right Gen AI tool.
Vikram, you
So
might have to
splitter,
unmute the
for
slide
example,
on your.
is an example of
Sorry about that. So basically, I had recorded the video also along with that slide. And what that slide was telling you is giving you a snapshot of the digital audio workstation, which is a de facto software used for music production, and how you could automate some part of that production with artificial intelligence. So that's all from my end, and look forward to your questions. Over to you, Shailesh.
Yeah, thanks, Subhro, for exciting introduction to the work you're doing. So, I think I'll be very short in interest of time. So, again, just like all of us in TCS, I'm also working as a scientist over there, and especially I'm also practicing art while I'm working as a scientist. I'm watercolor painter. So I don't see both of them to be really dual in the word the way they reflect. So it's like to me, one without the other is not possible. Both of them are in adventure in some sense, and they provide us science as well as art also provide me an opportunity to just look at my object of interest with a little bit what I can say with different perspective. Yeah. So Vikram, next slide, please. Yeah. So this is for work I do. I call it the book of arts because this is the most artistic part I can say. So this is what you see on the left hand side is a satellite image, and I'm interpreting that image for various language land cover. So be it tree, be it buildings, I can identify them. And then, of course, as we are discussing the sustainability application, so we can monitor forest, we can monitor flood, we can monitor many climate change related impacts. So this is the recent book which I have published, which is about the hyperspectral remote sensing of urban environments. Next slide, please. Recently, I had an exhibition of my watercolor painting also in Pune. On the left hand side, you see the pictures. On the right hand side, I'll talk a little about that. So these are the impressions created of delta region, and this is somewhat. It looks like somewhat, or as if like it's taken from satellite. So it's inspired by satellite images in some sense, and the beauty of it is actually whatever physical process which creates actual delta, which is sediments deposited by the river itself, creates a different delta region. The same process is replicated over on paper. That's all. So actually, the paper flows over the paint and it creates delta region. And you can. I was surprised to see the exact effect you see on the paper also, which you can see in the land. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what I want to do with this workshop is again I want to talk to people, connect with them, and have fun. And then how we would like to do that fun is actually I would try to see if I can use remote sensing to create some primitive symbols for the art message, whatever we want to create. Let's say a climate change message we want to have that impact, what symbols we can use and how we can extract it from remote sensing. And maybe I'll be interested in semiosis also, like how those symbols could be arranged to create a more impact. So yeah, that's all from my side. So maybe if there are any questions, we can discuss them in a panel discussion time. Yeah, thanks. That's all from my side.
Thank you to the TCS Research Group. I'll now bring in Manisha Vinod from the Bangalore Creative Circus. Manisha, I'm going to let you speak with your slides, but thank you so much for joining us. This is one of the most exciting, creative, innovative spaces in the city. And really, we hope to welcome our fellows to this space, because if you walk in there feeling like, I don't feel like working, I don't feel like doing much, that's a space that's going to invigorate and inspire a lot of doing. Right from the Makers Lab to the gardens they have behind, and a canteen if you just want to chill out and for a little bit, Manisha, tell us a lot more about your space and really why it exists, because I think the why of why your space exists really resonates a lot with what this fellowship is all about.
Thank you, Kamya. Thank you so much for having me. And it's lovely to hear from all of you. I'm so excited to see what the outcome of this fellowship, and to be privy to the journey as well. So look, really excited about that. I'll try and be as quick as I can. I suppose you can see my screen already. Yeah, so
yes.
Lovely. So, yeah, so I like Kamya said, right? I'd love to give you a little context to why we exist or what we're trying to do at the space, sort of thing. It is this idea that, there are so many well-intentioned folk who want to change their lifestyle, make those more conscious choices, and contribute more to the cities that they are living in, etc. But in this world where almost everything is available at the touch of a button and something landing up in your house in, like, say 10 minutes or less, etc., you don't expect people to actually go and search for these solutions. So hence the idea of spoon feeding it to them in some sense, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, for a lot of the solutions around the space of, say, climate change and sustainable living, etc., there's some fabulous work that's being done, but unfortunately, they're being done in these little silos here and there. Nobody speaking to each other. There are, say, 10 people trying to solve some part of the water problem. Even they don't speak to each other. That's the truth of it. And maybe one has a tech know-how while the other has some funding, etc. If only we all came together and did things together, right? So that was the idea of creating this space. And Bangalore Creative Circus is nothing but a platform to bring all of these people together at one place, right? To make those right connections, sort of thing. The space itself is a demonstrative space, therefore. And in fact, how we work is we have all of these collaborators who are showcasing all of the solutions around sustainable living and regenerative culture. Yeah, and we also, what we do is we use art as a medium to communicate large parts of all of this. We find that it transcends things like language and so much more, right? You're always... The memory is so much stronger when it's something to do with art, sort of thing. So that's how we've designed the space as well. So this is what, on your left, what you see at 2019 is what the space used to look like. It's an old shed. This was an old steel factory back in the day. And then it turned into a warehouse, and there wasn't a grass growing when we rented the place in 2019. And this is what it turned out to be towards the end of our construction, so on and so forth. The whole space is created out of repurposed material, recycled material. There was an office that was shifting to another building, so they were ripping apart that building. We went there and collected all of it, and that was going to go to a landfill, in fact. We collected all of that scrap. So everything that we've used to create the whole space is created out of the scrap that we collected. The other thing that we did is we did this upcycling drive in the city of Bangalore, where we told everyone, hey, give us your broken household equipment, your furniture, things that you don't need and you will not be using anymore. So those are the things. So everything there has a story of what it was in the past. Just to take you through the sort of the demonstrative aspect of the space itself, right? So it's a 20,000 square foot old building. And then we're showing you from, say, natural building to the urban farming methods. We have a hydroponics unit, an aquaponics system, a permaculture food forest. We have natural cooling, passive cooling methods. We have a maker space at the space. And how we work is we have partners for each and everything. Our idea is that, hey, if you're the one who's best at technology and art, there's no need for me to try and do it myself. There's enough in that piece of pie for you and me to coexist very peacefully, right? So that's the way we work. It's all about collaborative approaches, and somehow it really opens your mind up when you work together, right? For example, one of our resident artists who had come, he came as a digital artist, and in fact, he, after about 6 months when he was going back, he went back as a sculptor. He realized after meeting a lot of the artists that we have at the space, he realized what he really enjoys is creating with his hands in a very tactile nature, right? So that sort of thing, the ability to expand your horizons in whatever sense, only happens when you have these collaborations and when you have diverse partners, so on and so forth, right? So I always say, more than anything else, okay, it's a platform for sustainability, regenerative culture, but more than anything else, we are a community center. We are a community of micro communities. There are all sorts of folks who come, and there's this beautiful cross pollination that also happens, because someone may come to learn about, say, aquaponics, but by virtue of coming to the space, they now are interested in art and technology, and they want to explore wellness and different things. So there's this beautiful thing that's happening. So our challenge has always been in bringing people there, because we're not in the center of town in Bangalore, but of course, as an expanding city, it still constitutes as the center of the city itself. We have, like I said, it's a experimental space. So it's sort of become a space for all of these offbeat experiences. Anyone who wants to experiment, anyone who wants to try something brand new that they fear might not be accepted, etc. This is the space where we find. I'll tell you a little bit about the design of the space, because it's all made out of scrap, etc. Somehow inhibitions are lowered as soon as you walk in. You don't feel like you need to dress a particular way or speak in hushed tones, or speak in a particular language perhaps. None of those, all those barriers are just dropped purely by virtue of this haphazard design of the space itself, right? So from Qigong to, I mean, all sorts of things. We had a new media arts residency program that happened over there, and there's this really, really cool exhibit that ran for a whole month as a culmination of those workshops. And because of this flexibility of the space, that's if they could really, really experiment with, be it projection, be it, sensors, all sorts of things. So every nook and cranny of the space was used for that particular piece. I'd love to tell you a little bit about the area that we're located in. Every city is broken up into all of these wards for better governance. And the ward that we are in is called Marapanapalia. So what we've done is, see, at the end of the day, we are the outsiders. We're the ones who've come into this place and set up this place. And, whereas there's this thriving community that already exists, who is part of this industrial setup from before, from many, many years, in fact. So we're constantly trying to speak to them, hear from them what their challenges. First of all, understand what that looks like, right? Sometimes we just sit and assume that, oh, water and waste must be a problem over there. But turns out it isn't. Their challenge was that, hey, they don't have good schools to go to for their children to go to. So these sort of things you don't get to know unless you hold these sharing circles along with the locals and, taking them along the way. So this is just one example of a particular work that we've done collaboratively, in fact, with A-Tree and Initiative for Climate Action as well. So this is a heat mapping that we've been doing of the whole space, and how the green cover helps and how it impacts, and the interconnectedness of the green cover versus what's happening in the space itself, and what that means to water, etc. Right? So different things like that. So we've become the hub for all of these activities, and we attract all of these collaborators and partners to come use the space because of our relationship with the area and that community that we live in as well, right? So this is just an example of that. So I was looking at Shailesh's artwork and saying it would be lovely to have an artistic representation of something like this. At the end of the day, though we do a whole lot of corporate events and things like that at the space as well, we do all of these employee engagement programs, etc. Everything that we do is done thoughtfully, consciously. So we try to lower our carbon footprint as much as possible. We have circularity of systems. For example, all of the waste in the restaurant, it's a farm to table restaurant. So about 60% of what we need is grown in our farms itself. And then the food waste that's generated from the restaurant goes back into the composting, and that's used to thereby grow more food, that sort of thing. We also explore with our financial circularity of systems, where everything is not a financial transaction. We sometimes have folks who come and they want to contribute in a different way, perhaps, and we're very open to that. So we're constantly exploring all of these different things. We also explored this model of, pay as you wish, and then we got burnt pretty badly once or twice, and then we decided, okay, pay as you wish, but with a minimum of X, Y, Z. Or we said, hey, there's a sliding scale model. You pay based on your affordability, sort of thing. So there's some really, really fabulous things that, that when you set your mind out to, sort of be open to all of these different options, which the city like Bangalore really is. That's the sort of people that we have here. Lucky, it's immense, the sort of things that you can do with it. I'd love to show you like little parts of what the space looks like. So that central space is where we run our massive events. It's a space for in the image on the left. There's about 250 people sitting down over there. We have a museum for regenerative culture. It talks about from the local context to at a planetary level what's happening with our world. This on the left. This is the piece that I was talking about, which our first resident artist made. The person who came as a digital artist, right? It was basically, there was a tree that further up the road that was being cut down. So we went and took the dried roots of that, and then there's bark of wood, there's scrap metal inside. In the center, you'll see a painting that's basically on the office blinds of the other building that they were from the material that they were throwing away. So for example, we always keep everything very, very fluid in the sense of, see, that's the image on the right is from an art exhibit that happened over there. The floor is the floor. That is what it is. So when someone else came and did an exhibit, they decided to paint the entire floor and do artwork on that as well. So it's a really flexible space. It's perfect. And we find that even with the creation of the space, right? We had a beautiful artist collective who was helping us with creating the whole space. Even for them, it was a very liberating opportunity, because very often when there's paid work, there's someone breathing down your neck telling you exactly what size, shape, etc. it needs to be. Here, you let them be, and you really get the best out of them because they're really open-minded, and they're able to just flourish and thrive. So I think that's a beautiful learning from that. And this is our restaurant. We won 2 international awards for sustainable interiors, the Design Award and Architizer Plus awards. Everything that you see, like I said, right, is something that someone threw away. There is a WC. I don't know if you notice it there, but there is a WC, which is a seat for at the restaurant. And the idea is that the best ideas come to you when you're on the pot. So we've been playful about it as well, right? The van that you see up over there is a 2-seater table as well. And so it's a fun space. It's a sort of space that inspires you, that pushes you, that gives you ideas. While we don't mandate that everything has to be a sustainable creation, so on and so forth. When you come there, you can't but be influenced to sort of challenge yourself and say, hey, how can I do this where it's kinder to the people and the planet, sort of thing, right? So I think those are some of the values that the space really emanates. Just a couple of our partners, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for having me again. I know we have overshot.
Thank you, Manisha. Well, it's really hard to cut anybody short from talking about their amazingly passionate lives. So we are a little bit over time, but only because we cannot cut you short. So for anybody else who's in the audience, please know that it is really hard to encapsulate what these people are doing in the really short time that we've given them. So please indulge us with a little bit more of overtime, but I will engage our speakers today in a little bit more of a conversation before we let them go. And really, I feel like one thing that is a fulcrum to our fellowship is this safe, vulnerable, although exciting, collaborative space of making and thinking. And that is something that all your work and worlds point to as well. So I would just like to take this moment or this next few moments to have each of you potentially articulate, and if I can bring a food analogy to the table, what are the ingredients for, I don't want to say successful, I clearly haven't thought of the right word, but what are the key ingredients to making that journey of innovation, creation, and pushing boundaries possible from each of your worlds? From Freo, for example, please go first, and your world is similar to ours. What in your mind are the ingredients for pushing boundaries?
So I think the food analogy is kind of nice because I have an answer for that. I'd say it's lots of fluid. That's the main ingredient. All the rest is not so important. It should be very humid, with lots of changes of perspective possible, swimming, diving, dipping into, maybe just dipping your feet sometimes into the fluid. So I would say that for this method of transdisciplinary developing and making, I really like your use of the word making a lot because it sounds so physical and hands-on, and really like a process that could always be changed and questioned and restarted, which I find really exciting. I think it's important that people are able to not to insist on a position or identity or something static, but rather are willing and able to put themselves into somebody else's shoes, or to identify with somebody else, or to try out different dreams, ideas, hopes, visions, ambitions. I think there's no end to be audacious and wild and speculating. And then after speculating, also trying out things physically. For me, so maybe first it's fluid and then it goes into the oven and gets baked a bit, or there's a crust or something to it. Because I also like the moment when you have a first result or something experienceable, and then you can ask, was that already it, or is it only a first step, and how can we change this? And after people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump coming into power, I'm not a big fan of destruction anymore. Maybe 20 years ago I was. Now I'm very much about reforming, tenderly changing things with your hand, being still connected, not just pushing stuff away and disrupting from a distance, which seems to be happening in the USA very much these days. So maybe that's my main ingredient.
Thank you. Fluid is a really good metaphor to keep in mind. Shubhro, Vikram?
Yeah, Shubhro, you want to go first?
Sure. I actually like the analogy that Freya just gave. I would probably think of it as channelizing energy, So when you cook food, you have energy, and that transforms all the raw material into something that really people enjoy at the end of it, right? So it's all about channelizing the energy in life, and maybe you'll have difficult days at work. So when you're angry, instead of venting it out on people, maybe you can come home and pick up an instrument and play it to the content of your heart, write some songs about sorrow, etc. And that's a better way of venting the energy, channelizing it to leading it to something creative and joyful, not only for the self, but maybe for everyone around you.
Yeah, thank you for articulating that, Shubhro. I think sometimes we see art and technology as quite opposite to each other. And Shailesh, you had mentioned earlier that you don't see them as different, and in your world, you can't do one without the other. But that sometimes within a making space could become points of friction. And so I think what you have articulated is an interesting one, where how do we move beyond that and use the energy? Collaborative is not always happy and fun. collaborative can have friction as well. And then how do we deal with friction and embrace friction and be okay with friction? Harkening back on what Freo also said, how do we put ourselves in other people's shoes and think differently and be okay with that kind of discomfort almost? So thanks for raising that.
Yeah, so this has been a kind of a question in the two worlds of, because we are also in the innovative space as far as research is concerned, because we have to come up with new things in the research. And then there was a part in the art which you personally have been involved in some sense. So I took a long time to kind of reconcile these two. For example, I felt a better spiritual connect when you are involved in art. I felt, sorry to say, but less connected when you are just doing these cerebral things. Of late, I have been very kind of finding a very harmonious union between the two. But the common thread that I have found is something we can say as self-expression. Okay, so there is experience that we go through. There is something, a conscious being that we are. And everything that we have experienced in life and everything that we are thinking, articulating, etc., there is a urge to communicate. So we as a lonely beings is something that we can't live with. It's an urge to kind of give it an expression and bring it to the people and then share it. And I say many times that we need at least one audience, at least, for whatever we do, whosoever that audience is. So that share of expression and to be able to communicate and get a feedback from the other is a big push to whatever we do in research, in the technology world, as well as in the art world. And that's where I see the twain meet in some sense. Yeah.
Of course. So sharing and exchanging, I think that's also a great piece that will fit into this puzzle of collaborative making. Manisha?
Yeah, I also think the whole experiences these days, right? I mean, everything is either you're consuming it either digitally or I think that whole tactile engagement is it really, really changes the way you consume it, the way you interact with it, right? So there's great power in taking any topic. I mean, of course, with this particular piece, it's something that everyone relates to, right? I mean, be it food and ecology, ecological belonging, if you'd like to call it, that whole interconnectedness between man and nature, etc. But when it's translated into sometimes the simplest things, right? The simplest pieces, when it comes together in an interactive engagement, it adds so much value and meaning and really inspires you to be that change. And yeah, very excited to see what comes of that part.
Yeah, so I like that idea of tactile because we were a fellowship that was really online since 2020, and we really missed the tactile. All our fellows met each other at Future Fantastic for the first time 10 days before they were putting their installations up. And if they left us strong feedback, it was like, make sure we meet each other much earlier within the process within your fellowships. And I think we've taken that to heart this time, which is why we've really made this extra effort to be in physical locations like the Bangalore Creative Circus, like the Freo Majer space in Ladakh, and like the Unbox Culture Labs in Goa. It's been, I have to tell everybody who's assembled here, it has been a much harder ask to both fundraise as well as seek partnerships for this multi-venue, multi-geography, multidisciplinary, physical and online thing. But we are forging ahead with the belief that there is great value in the people assembled here, and we will just figure out a way. So thank you so much. So the panelists, I will have you hold on for a little bit. To all our audience assembled here, if you want to ask our panelists any questions with what you heard from them, please do so now. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. We will take the kind of fellowship-related logistical questions after we have addressed questions to our panelists. So if anybody has any question, I think somebody had a question for the Ladakh mentors. Or actually, there is somebody who says, Freo, I'd like to know your thoughts on ethnography meeting game design.
So I couldn't claim that I have given it so many thoughts yet, but it sounds fascinating, of course. I mean, my first response will always be, why not? So if you come up with some interesting connections or want to experiment with this medium, why not? It sounds fascinating. I mean, with Driving the Human, for example, we had an incredible project on the climate crisis also, which was basically a video game. Like people could engage with all kinds of non-human beings, like birds and reindeers and fish and so on, the Arctic region in general, and kind of identify with those beings and understand those processes due to the climate crisis, how their habitat is changing, how their daily life, so to speak, and their way of surviving. And this was very touching because it was not just a game, but rather about who am I as a human and how can I identify a doll with an animal, for example. And yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in those experiments.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions among those assembled here? All right, that's great. We will have this recording put up. So if you want to review it, to hear more about each mentor and what they have to offer, please, we'll respond to all of you with that in the email. But if any of you have any questions about the fellowship itself, I will thank Manisha, Freo, Subhro, Shailesh, and Vikram. Thank you so much for your time here. And we really, really look forward to working with you much closer online as well as in the various spaces. And for anybody or any of you who think of questions for the mentors, please feel free to email us and we will pass it on to them. Yeah.
I think we have a couple of questions in the chat.
For the mentors or for us?
This not particularly addressing any mentor, but with respect to
Yeah, we'll
Bangalore.
answer the fellowship. I'm just aware of your times. You can feel free to hang on for a little bit longer, mentors, and listen in, or you can feel free to drop off as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
everyone.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, so we can take these questions. Sambita, for visual artists interested in creative use of tech, applying for the Bangalore part of the residency or the fellowship in general, how much experience in creative use of technology is required to be eligible for the fellowship? So we just ask that you have 3 to 5 years of experience in one core domain. So this call has been put out for climate researchers, food bloggers, creative technologists, artists. And because this is such a transdisciplinary conversation, we are asking that you have at least 3 to 5 years of standing in your discipline, which in your case, Sambita, would be visual arts. And that's all you need. You don't need too much of experience in the creative use of technology, because that's what the mentors are also here to guide you on and kind of give you an initiation with a bunch of tools. And really also this is a space for peer learning. A lot of our fellowships, you learn from each other and not just from the mentors. And like the mentors have said, they're looking forward to learning from you as well. So this is a space of literally exchange. So that I hope that answers your question. if you need a follow-up, you can unmute yourself and do that.
We have questions.
Yeah, I'll just answer Chaitali's question. It says, does the physical component have to be full-time or can it be part-time as needed as well? So here's the thing, the mentors will be there full-time. We have requested that the mentors do at least 6 half-day sessions with the fellows. So over a 2-week period, you will need to commit to at least 6 half-day sessions. And the idea of the physical mentorship is to ensure that you have enough time with your collaborators and mentors to user test and kind of imagine in physical space the artwork that you produce. So a minimum of 6 half days, but I would really encourage our fellows to maybe take a week off of work and give it your all.
I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, not living in India at the moment. So that's a part of being there for at least 6 days, as you said, days, is that during the August,
Yes, September part, yes.
But the rest can be followed online?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, because then I could make a plan for being in the space. Great. And I had a question about the cities. Do you have to pick one or can you pick two to focus on?
We just ask that people have some context with the cities. And yeah, so it's fine if you want to pick two, that the jury will deliberate a little bit on where the proposal that you send makes more sense for. It's also not just you and the proposal and where it goes, it's the collaborators you're pulling in and how kind of meaty the proposal is. So yeah, right now it's not an answer of choose one or the other. It is come in, engage. If you feel like you have enough context of one of the 3 locations or 2 of the 3 locations, sure.
Great. And does that also mean then that you could, during the time, speak to the mentors from the different locations as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the idea of this is really blurring boundaries. So while I think the reason we ask you to be in and around Bangalore, in and around Goa, or in and around Ladakh is the fellowship does not offer travel grants to travel to these places. In Bangalore and Goa, we don't have residential spaces. In Ladakh, our partners in Achi Association have offered residential space in Ladakh. So that's the difference in Ladakh. So we will be able to house one collaborative group in Ladakh, but in Bangalore and Goa, it's kind of a non-residential residency, offering a whole lot of mentorship, space, coming together, dialoguing, making, all of that. So that's, of course, from a carbon mile perspective, as well as from being unable to afford travel grants, we encourage you to be from the location. But if you can make a case for understanding the context well enough, having had prior research, enthusiasm for the space, and if you can get yourself there with a really good idea and a set of collaborators, there's no reason to say no.
Nice. And can I ask another question?
Sure.
It has to do with the collaborators. So we can collaborate with the mentors and then obviously the spaces that are connected to the cities. But is there will the mentors also kind of guide us based on our interests as to who else we could collaborate with? Can we collaborate with the fellows, the other fellows? Is it all very open?
Yes. So the way our fellowships have worked is we do a lot of ice breaking in the week 1, and we try to create a lot of online spaces for people to find shared interests and enthusiasms and kind of discuss their ideas and see if either ideas can be melded or we've also noticed in the past there would be one really strong idea and that person becomes the leader, but There's a bunch of other folks who are like, okay, I can contribute this towards your idea. I like your concept, but I can do the technology, or I like your technology, but I can do the research. So, you kind of complement each other's possibility. And so the idea of the fellowship is that you find fellows that you feel like hanging out with and working with.
Nice. Well, I'm from Bangalore and Goa, so I have the
Oh,
context.
superb.
Last year I
Fabulous.
went to the dock, so all of the spaces have context for me. So, but thank
Yeah.
you. I'll give room for other people.
So there is a question from Radha who says, is there any kind of creator that you think would not be suitable for this? I guess the kind of creator that will not be suitable for this is somebody who has their idea that they would like to explore alone within the fellowship and would like to use this fellowship space to further kind of their own agendas without opening up the space to be collaborative with others or without opening up themselves for others to, influence or share or contribute to their ideas. So I think somebody, to use Freo's analogy of fluid, somebody who's not open enough and fluid enough might be the person who's not great for this fellowship. Any specific age group or age limit? No, absolutely not. 3 years of experience would be great, but no age limit up or below. Are there any other verbal questions before I take more questions from the chat? Okay, Avni. My background is in design thinking, creating waste management systems in rural India. Not really from the discipline you mentioned. Would I be eligible for this fellowship? Not really from the art background. Absolutely. And that's why we kind of call it creatives. We are looking for artists and designers and creative technologists, although I do think most technologists are creative. But creative technology is kind of beginning to be this field where art and technology meet. So we are using it because that's what the world around is using. So absolutely, your background in design thinking and waste management and rural India is perfect, because one of the ideas of this festival, we've always not really put geography to it before, but we really feel like some of the spaces like rural India hold a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and also hope in terms of addressing climate change. They are resilient communities. They are communities that are thinking first, acting fast, figuring things out on the ground. They are makers in the true sense. And for some of us who are born and brought up in the urban lands of India, we really need to look beyond our big city machines to feel inspired that there is a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to climate change. So I think, Avni, a lot of your background is very, very appropriate for a conversation like ours.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? If you're feeling too shy to unmute, please pen it down in the chat. Feel free to put your videos on so other people can see who you are. And I can even stop my spotlight. But yeah, that's that. Go
One
ahead,
last.
Adelina. Yeah.
It's the application, there's a request for a video, but it doesn't really state what the video needs to encompass. And it says if you're video shy, you could get someone to speak for you. I was just wondering also like the duration of the video, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and the
I
context.
think,
There's a lot
yeah.
is
Okay, sorry for that. Maybe we need to go in and rephrase that ask. the idea is that this is such a virtual starting of the fellowship that it would be really nice to, get a virtual sense of who you are on a video. So it's a little bit more about you and your practice and what your motivations are. Yeah, that kind of really helps introduce you to others and things like that. But that's what the requirement of the video is. It's not mandatory, but it's, if that's a medium that you choose to communicate in, that's fine.
Great. Thank you.
Kamya, I can share screen and show the FAQ page. Is that?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. As for the video, are you referring to this question?
Yes.
So yeah, I think we're just asking you to talk about how this fellowship excites you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we also have, and I'm gonna just present screen for a second, links that you can scan to our website and our Instagram. We post updates on our Instagram, and we have an FAQ page on our website where most of the questions are answered. Just going to take you through the FAQ page as well. So we have program details, questions regarding the open call, so who can apply, questions about collaborators, fee to attend if there's any, what you need to submit, and also some program details, which happens after you apply, if you have any questions about how the program will be structured. And all of these answers are here. Yeah. Second. If you have any questions, you can also mail us at coordinator@befantastic.in. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that aren't on the website.
Super. Is there any other questions? Great. So thanks so much for sticking with us through the end and asking your questions. We will be posting some of your questions online as well, because I think when you ask for many. So yeah, thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing applications. Chaitali, nice to see you again. Angelina, Noreen told me that you would be popping in. So nice to see all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for the session.
Yes, see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram.
Shivani, Jasmine.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vikram. Good night.